She laughed at the legends of human warriors, then witnessed one in battle cosmic grit. Lyra had traveled across dozens of star systems, visiting planets with creatures of every size and skill. She had seen the mightiest of warriors, the smartest of strategists, and the cleverest of inventors. Yet when stories of human fighters were mentioned in council meetings, she could not help but laugh. They spoke of humans who survived battles that should have ended them, humans who faced enemies far stronger and lived through sheer determination alone. To Lyra, it sounded like myth, a tale made to entertain rather than a record of truth. Humans were small, fragile, and overly emotional in every account she had read. The idea of them as warriors was amusing. Her current mission was meant to be simple. She was sent to observe a joint frontier outpost at the edge of the Orion Passage, where humans were stationed alongside other species from the Alliance. Lyra was there to monitor diplomatic interactions, understand their way of life, and report back with her conclusions. Everything seemed calm. The outpost was a cluster of metal structures tethered to asteroids, with a few defense turrets and communication arrays. Humans moved among their alien colleagues with an unassuming air. They seemed ordinary, even fragile, nothing like the stories suggested. Then the alarm started. A low, vibrating hum filled the corridors, followed by flashing red lights. An unknown hostile force had been detected moving through the nearby debris fields. Panic swept through the station like wildfire. Aliens from the Alliance scrambled to their stations, shouting instructions, some running blindly through corridors. Lyra watched carefully, expecting to see chaos take over. That was when she noticed something different. The humans, who were supposed to be vulnerable, did not panic. They moved with purpose. Aaron was one of the humans at the outpost. He was quiet, not the loud or boastful type that the legends often described. He had no impressive armor or visible modifications, just the standard human exosuit. When he moved, he did so calmly, checking corners, sealing doors, and helping others find safe paths. Lyra followed him with a mix of disbelief and fascination. How could someone so small move so effectively in a situation that had sent larger, stronger species into chaos? The enemy, whatever it was, did not announce itself immediately. Sensors picked up fast-moving shapes in the debris, closing in on the outpost. The alarms became continuous. Humans and aliens alike rushed to their posts. Many species relied on technology, shields, and brute force. Humans relied on something else. Lyra could not yet name it. It was not speed or strength, at least not the kind she had seen in other warriors. It was something deeper, a refusal to give up, a calm determination even when danger was near. As the enemy reached the first defense perimeter, weapons fire erupted. Energy beams sliced through the corridors of the outpost, hitting turrets and armor. Aliens shouted orders, but confusion reigned. Aaron, however, moved forward instead of retreating. He led a group of humans through a damaged corridor, sealing doors behind them and guiding frightened personnel to safe zones. Lyra realized she had not seen anything like this before. Others panicked or froze, but the humans, small and unarmored, moved with precision and courage. She watched from a high catwalk as Aaron was struck by a fragment from an enemy drone. The impact should have slowed him down, yet he barely flinched. He kept moving, pulling a wounded alien engineer to safety, then returning to check another corridor. Lyra leaned closer, unsure if she was imagining what she was seeing. How could someone continue without flinching, without hesitation, when they were injured and surrounded by an enemy far superior in numbers and strength? Communication was chaotic. Sensors detected enemy units breaching multiple points. Most species relied on immediate reporting and defensive maneuvers, yet the humans seemed to operate with an instinctive sense of what needed to be done. Lyra followed Aaron as he climbed over debris and helped a small child to safety, ignoring his own bleeding arm. There was no hesitation, no calculation of risk, only action. For Lyra, it was difficult to process. She had studied human psychology for years, and every description of fear, of panic under threat, matched what she had expected to see. Humans were supposed to be limited, easily broken, and yet here was Aaron proving every assumption wrong. She could hear the warnings from command crackling over the comms, urging personnel to retreat, to hold back. Aaron ignored them. He moved faster, smarter, and more calmly than anyone else in the area. The corridors filled with smoke and energy blasts. Lyra ducked instinctively behind a pillar as a laser beam passed overhead. She noticed Aaron was coordinating other humans silently, using gestures and short commands. It was organized chaos, a dance in the heart of destruction. The other species began to notice and followed his lead. The humans were small in number, but their influence on the battlefield was immense. They did not command through fear or authority. They commanded through example, through courage that inspired others to act despite the danger. Lyra found herself moving closer. She could not simply watch from afar anymore. Something compelled her to witness the human warrior up close. As she descended into the corridor, debris fell around her and warning alarms screamed. She saw Aaron facing a group of enemy drones. With no more than a sidearm, he disabled several, using movement, environment, and sheer intuition. One drone fired a blast that would have destroyed him completely, but he rolled behind a bulkhead, using the blast itself to propel him closer to cover, and then counterattack. Lyra gasped quietly. This was not myth. This was reality. The enemy forces were stronger and more numerous than the humans could match. Lyra expected Aaron to fall any moment, yet he did not. Every time a drone approached, he found a way to use it against itself. Every time a blast hit near him, he absorbed it and continued. Other species began to mimic his movements, retreating strategically, attacking with precision, following his lead. Lyra felt a thrill of fear and admiration. She had laughed at these legends, and now she understood why they existed. There was a force in humans that no amount of size, strength, or technology could replace. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The battle tore through the outpost, yet humans continued to stand firm. Lyra took careful notes, knowing she would have to report this accurately. She could not let anyone reduce this to mere exaggeration. The endurance, courage, and instinct she witnessed were beyond anything she had cataloged in the Alliance. Humans were not invincible, but they were relentless. They would not stop. They could not stop. As the first wave of enemies breached the outer walls completely, Aaron remained. He was alone now, separated from his small unit, injured, yet still moving forward. Lyra's disbelief deepened. She expected him to fall immediately, yet he continued, using every scrap of cover, every piece of debris, every ounce of his strength to delay the enemy while others evacuated. She realized that human legends were incomplete. They did not speak of strength, intelligence, or weapons. They spoke of will, of determination that refused to yield. The alarm system continued to wail, the corridors shuddered under impacts, and the station itself groaned under fire. Yet Lyra watched Aaron, small and unassuming, become the center of a story she would carry with her for the rest of her life. She had laughed at the legends of human warriors, and now she was witnessing one in battle. Her report would not be simple observation anymore. She was a witness to courage that defied reason, to persistence that bordered on impossible, to a human warrior who embodied every tale she had once dismissed. The battle was far from over, but Lyra's perspective had changed. She could see now what the stories had meant, why the legends had persisted across generations. It was not power or fearlessness alone. It was a refusal to surrender. It was grit. She had laughed at humans, thinking them too fragile to matter. Now, in the midst of chaos and destruction, she understood that this small species, this human, was something entirely different, and she could not look away. Lyra stayed close to Aaron, moving carefully through the damaged corridors of the outpost. She could see smoke curling from broken walls and hear the distant sound of alarms mixing with explosions. Many of the allied species had begun to retreat or hide, overwhelmed by the enemy's sheer force. But humans, small and seemingly fragile, continued forward, guiding others and taking calculated risks. Lyra followed, recording every detail. This was no longer a simple observation mission. She was witnessing something extraordinary. Aaron's movements were methodical. He helped an injured alien worker over a pile of rubble, then turned to cover a group of fleeing humans. His injuries slowed him slightly, but he did not pause to rest. Lyra noticed how his eyes scanned constantly, assessing every threat. It was not just instinct. It was careful calculation under immense pressure. She had never seen anything like it in all the species she had studied. The enemy advanced with increasing aggression. Drones and soldiers moved through corridors, striking at everything in their path. Lyra could see several humans taking defensive positions, using debris and damaged equipment to create makeshift barriers. They fired in short, precise bursts, retreating only when necessary and always moving with purpose. Aaron led them, signaling silently, coordinating their movements as if the chaos around them had become a carefully choreographed battle. In one corridor, Aaron faced a small squad of enemy drones. Lyra held her breath as he ducked and rolled behind cover. One of the drones fired a concentrated blast, and a piece of debris struck his arm, cutting through the exosuit. Blood showed, but he ignored it, flipping the drone with a nearby support beam and using its energy against another. Lyra's mind struggled to comprehend his endurance. Other species would have panicked or fled, but he continued, unstoppable. It was not speed or size that mattered. It was sheer determination, a refusal to give in. Lyra realized the humans were teaching her something by example. Their movements, their persistence, and their courage were contagious. Some aliens began following Aaron's tactics, moving forward instead of running, protecting others instead of seeking safety. Aaron had not given them orders through authority or force. He had inspired them through his actions. Lyra noted the difference carefully. This was not leadership as she had understood it before. This was the quiet, relentless drive of someone who would not let defeat happen. In the next section of the outpost, chaos reigned. Fires spread, communication lines were down, and energy shields flickered and failed. The enemy had anticipated retreat points and blocked escape routes. Many species panicked and became trapped. Lyra's heart raced as she saw a group of small children cornered by a rapidly approaching enemy drone. Without hesitation, Aaron dashed forward, scooping the children into his arms and running into a narrow maintenance shaft. He held them tight, using every ounce of strength to keep them safe while continuing to engage enemies blocking their path. She followed closely, ducking under falling metal panels and leaping over exposed cables. Lyra's training in survival gave her agility, but she had never needed it like this. Every step was dangerous, every corner could hide death. And yet, humans pressed forward, saving lives and fighting as if it were instinct. Aaron moved without complaint, without fear, his focus absolute. Other humans joined him, small squads forming behind his lead. They barricaded doors, created choke points, and used the environment to their advantage. Lyra observed how they thought creatively under pressure. Broken support beams became weapons, leaking energy conduits became traps. The enemy was powerful, but the humans used resourcefulness and strategy to balance the odds. Lyra realized that the legends had not mentioned this part. Humans did not rely solely on strength. They relied on adaptability and courage in equal measure. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. Lyra felt exhaustion in her own body, but she could not stop watching. She had thought humans were weak, overhyped, and ill-equipped. She had laughed at the stories of warriors surviving impossible odds. Now, in the middle of destruction, she understood. Humans endured beyond what reason or logic would allow. They continued when every other being would have given up. The battlefield became a test not of technology or might, but of will. At one point, Aaron faced a massive enemy assault alone. His squad had been scattered, communications were down, and the station structure around him was collapsing. Lyra thought for certain he would fall, but he adapted instantly. Using falling debris, energy conduits, and careful timing, he slowed the advance, taking down drones and soldiers one by one. It was not strength. It was focus, ingenuity, and refusal to surrender. Lyra could feel a strange emotion she had never expected. She admired him, feared for him, and felt inspired all at once. She noticed other humans, previously quiet and reserved, stepping into the fight as well. Lyra observed how quickly they learned from Aaron's actions. A human who had been tending wounded suddenly grabbed a makeshift weapon and engaged an enemy. Another who had been guiding civilians blocked a critical corridor, holding it long enough for others to escape. The humans multiplied the effect of one warrior through courage and action. Even the aliens began to see the difference. Species who were stronger, faster, or better armed were faltering, but they took cues from human actions. Aaron became a symbol, though he did not want it. He simply acted, refused to yield, and others followed. Lyra's belief in human myth shifted entirely. She understood that legends were not exaggerated. They were incomplete. They told of the outcome, not the struggle. They did not capture the quiet, relentless force of will that humans possessed. At one point, Lyra found herself in a corridor where a ceiling panel had collapsed, blocking the exit. Enemy drones were advancing. Aaron appeared, moving quickly, removing debris, guiding humans through the narrow opening. When a drone fired at him, he ducked, rolled, and returned fire with precise aim, taking it down. Lyra felt a thrill of disbelief. There was no way he should have survived that. Yet he did, again and again, using his mind, body, and sheer determination. The enemy began to focus on morale, attempting psychological attacks with loud noise, blinding lights, and threats over the intercom. Many species faltered under the pressure, but the humans held firm. Lyra noticed how they encouraged one another quietly, how small gestures and shared focus reinforced their courage. Aaron led not by words but by presence. His refusal to give up became a shield for everyone who followed. By the end of the battle that day, the humans had not won. They had delayed the enemy long enough for many to escape. They had survived situations that should have killed them. Aaron himself was injured multiple times, exhausted beyond measure, yet alive. Lyra stood in the middle of the ruined corridor, catching her breath, her mind racing with the realization that the stories she had laughed at were real. Humans could endure, adapt, and inspire. They could survive against impossible odds. For Lyra, the lesson was clear. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. What they possessed was something the universe had underestimated: an indomitable spirit, the courage to act when all seemed lost, and the relentless determination to protect others. Aaron had shown her that humans could be more than legend. They could be reality, and reality that could inspire fear, respect, and admiration across the galaxy. As the remaining humans regrouped and treated the wounded, Lyra knew her report would not simply describe a battle. It would document the force of human will, their grit, and their courage. She had laughed at the stories, but she would not do so again. She had witnessed it herself, and that witness would change everything she thought she knew about humanity. The battle had subsided for a brief moment, but the tension remained thick in the air. Lyra moved carefully through the corridors, her eyes scanning for threats. She followed Aaron, who was now tending to minor injuries among the remaining humans and some alien allies. The outpost was badly damaged, corridors blocked with debris, and the alarm still blared intermittently. Yet Aaron moved with the same calm determination she had witnessed earlier. There was no panic, no fear, only a focused will to act and survive. Lyra could not help but notice how Aaron analyzed every situation. When a power conduit sparked dangerously near a hallway where civilians had gathered, he quickly redirected the crowd, using broken panels and furniture to create a protective barrier. He worked silently, without shouting or demanding attention, yet those around him followed instinctively. Even aliens who were larger and stronger waited for his cue before acting. His courage was magnetic, and his skill at using the environment made him appear almost unstoppable. The enemy had regrouped after their initial attack. They were stronger and more coordinated, having learned from the first clash. Drones and soldiers approached from multiple directions, cutting off the main corridors. Lyra noticed that Aaron did not retreat or panic. Instead, he observed the enemy patterns, adapted quickly, and began setting up traps using what remained of the damaged station. Broken energy panels, loose wires, and debris were turned into obstacles and defensive tools. Lyra realized this was human ingenuity in action, resourceful, adaptive, and relentless. In one corridor, Aaron found himself face to face with a squad of enemy soldiers. They outnumbered him and were heavily armed. Lyra expected him to fall immediately, but he did not. Using quick, precise movements, he maneuvered through cover, disarmed one soldier, and used his weapon to knock another off balance. His timing was perfect, almost instinctual. Lyra felt her disbelief grow with each action he took. How could one human, alone and injured, take on so many and survive? Aaron's team of humans, small in number but highly motivated, followed his lead. They worked together seamlessly, communicating through gestures, quick commands, and an understanding that seemed almost instinctive. Lyra observed how humans, who were previously considered fragile, coordinated like seasoned warriors. Each member contributed in a way that amplified the group's effectiveness. They moved as one, inspired by Aaron's courage and determination. It was more than strategy, it was spirit. The enemy tried psychological attacks next. Loud, piercing sounds and intense lights were aimed to disorient and frighten the humans. Lyra saw many species falter, but not the humans. They held their positions, encouraged one another quietly, and continued to advance. Aaron, despite being injured and exhausted, led from the front. He reassured the group with calm gestures, showing that fear could be controlled, that courage could be chosen. Lyra noted this carefully. It was not the first time she had seen humans endure, but it was the first time she truly understood the depth of their resolve. As the battle intensified, Aaron faced a particularly dangerous enemy machine, a heavily armored drone that seemed nearly indestructible. He studied its movements, waiting for an opening. With precise timing, he used a fallen energy conduit to strike the drone's weak point, causing a chain reaction that disabled it. Lyra's heart raced. The humans were small, their weapons standard issue, yet they defeated an enemy that should have been far beyond their capacity. This was not luck. This was human perseverance and intelligence combined with courage. In the midst of the chaos, Aaron continued to protect civilians. He guided them through narrow maintenance shafts, using every skill he had to ensure their safety. He ignored his own pain, injuries piling up, as he focused solely on others. Lyra began to realize that human legends had missed the most important detail. Humans fight not only for survival, but for the protection of others. Their courage was amplified by their care, their determination strengthened by empathy. The enemy's strategy became more aggressive, attempting to isolate and eliminate the human fighters. Lyra watched Aaron and his group adapt again, creating decoys, luring enemies into traps, and using the damaged station to their advantage. Each move demonstrated not just skill, but creativity and unyielding spirit. Lyra noted that humans did not always rely on brute strength. They relied on understanding, improvisation, and determination. This was the essence of human grit, the core of the legend she had once dismissed. The corridor became a maze of smoke, debris, and flashing lights. Aaron moved through it with precision, signaling his team and coordinating with alien allies. Lyra saw humans jump over gaps, duck under falling panels, and engage enemies with a level of confidence that seemed impossible. Each successful maneuver boosted morale, not only for the humans but for the aliens who followed their lead. Lyra realized that courage could be contagious. Humans, small as they were, had the power to inspire even the strongest species to act beyond their limits. Hours of battle continued. Aaron faced moments where defeat seemed certain, yet he refused to stop. Lyra observed his eyes, calm and focused, seeing danger but not allowing it to control him. Each time an enemy approached, he adapted. Each time a threat appeared, he turned it into an advantage. The battlefield itself seemed to obey his will. Lyra understood that the legends had been trying to capture this spirit. The refusal to surrender, the ability to endure, and the courage to act even when survival seemed impossible. By the end of the engagement, Aaron and his group had not defeated the enemy completely, but they had delayed them long enough to save lives. The outpost was heavily damaged, some areas destroyed, yet the humans had held critical points and protected civilians. Lyra could see the exhaustion in their movements, the injuries on their bodies, yet their determination remained intact. They had survived against impossible odds, not through strength alone, but through courage, adaptability, and relentless will. Lyra felt a profound respect for humans. She had laughed at their legends, thinking them exaggerated and improbable. Now she knew that the stories were true, but incomplete. They told of survival and victories, but not of the grit, the spirit, and the courage that made survival possible. Humans were not perfect, but they endured beyond reason, inspired others, and faced the impossible without surrender. As Aaron and his team regrouped, treating the wounded and reinforcing positions, Lyra realized that the legend of the human warrior was more than a story. It was a testament to the strength of will, the power of determination, and the courage that could inspire even the most advanced species to rise to the challenge. She knew that when she reported back to the Alliance, her words would need to capture not just the events, but the essence of what she had witnessed. Humans, small and underestimated, standing against impossible odds, refusing to yield, and becoming a force that no one could ignore. The battle had changed everything. Lyra had been a skeptic, a critic of human myths. Now she was a witness to the truth, and the truth was undeniable. Humans possessed a grit that transcended physical limitations, a courage that inspired all who saw it, and a spirit that refused to surrender even in the face of overwhelming danger. Aaron had shown her the reality behind the legends, and she knew she would never doubt again. The enemy had withdrawn temporarily, but the outpost was far from safe. Smoke filled the corridors, alarms still blared, and damage was everywhere. Lyra moved cautiously, following Aaron and the remaining humans as they regrouped and assessed the situation. Injuries were severe, resources were limited, and communication with command was still down. Yet the humans showed no signs of surrender. Aaron, despite his exhaustion and wounds, coordinated defenses and organized the remaining survivors. He checked each area, ensuring the injured were stabilized, barricades reinforced, and civilians moved to safer zones. Lyra marveled at the efficiency and calm with which he moved. The humans were small and seemingly fragile, yet their presence commanded respect and attention. Even the alien species, larger and stronger, looked to him for guidance. It was not authority in the traditional sense. It was an unspoken trust earned through courage and action. The enemy returned with greater force, having analyzed their previous failure. Their fleet descended upon the station with precision, targeting key points of defense. Lyra saw panic beginning to spread among some species. Retreat was advised, but the humans refused. Aaron signaled them to hold positions, using calm gestures and short commands. His example inspired the remaining humans to stand firm, and some aliens began to mirror their determination. Aaron moved swiftly, assessing threats, setting traps, and creating choke points. He used the environment cleverly, turning damaged corridors into defensive lines and using debris to slow enemy advances. Lyra observed how humans adapted quickly, improvising in real time and maintaining focus despite exhaustion and injury. Each success reinforced morale, and the humans' resolve seemed to grow stronger in the face of overwhelming odds. A group of human soldiers had been separated and trapped in a corridor surrounded by enemy drones. Lyra watched Aaron navigate through another path, reaching them, and using tactical movements and precise strikes to disable several drones. He guided the group to safety, ignoring his own injuries. Lyra realized that the legends of human warriors had never emphasized this quality. Humans fought for others, protecting lives as a measure of their courage and determination. The enemy intensified their assault, targeting morale with loud, disorienting sounds, flashing lights, and threats over the intercom. Many species faltered under the pressure, retreating or freezing. The humans, however, held firm. They moved as a unit, communicated efficiently, and maintained focus on their goals. Lyra noticed the psychological strength in their actions. They did not act out of fear or anger, but out of a resolute choice to persevere. Aaron's presence was the anchor that allowed them to endure. In one critical area, the enemy deployed a massive assault drone designed to break through defenses. Lyra held her breath as Aaron and a few humans engaged it. They used their environment creatively, employing fallen beams, exposed conduits, and quick maneuvers to disable the machine. Lyra could see the ingenuity, precision, and courage in every action. The humans did not rely on raw power. They relied on adaptability, intelligence, and an unyielding spirit. Throughout the station, humans inspired others to act. Alien allies who had once been hesitant began taking bold actions, following the humans' lead. Lyra realized that courage and determination could be contagious, and that humans, despite their small size and limited strength, had the ability to shift the outcome of battle through sheer will. Aaron became more than a soldier. He became a symbol of persistence and hope. Hours passed and the station remained under threat. The humans had not defeated the enemy, but they had held crucial positions and saved many lives. Aaron, despite being severely injured, continued to coordinate, protect, and fight. Lyra's admiration grew. She had doubted human legends, laughed at the stories of warriors surviving impossible odds, but now she understood the truth. Humans could endure beyond reason, inspire others, and face overwhelming danger without surrendering. The enemy made one final push, concentrating forces on the central hub of the outpost. Aaron and the remaining humans moved to intercept, using every skill, tactic, and ounce of courage they possessed. Lyra watched, heart pounding, as they engaged in a desperate struggle. The battle was brutal, but the humans refused to give up. Their determination held the line, bought time, and inflicted significant losses on the enemy. As reinforcements arrived from other allied fleets, the humans maintained their positions until the enemy was forced to retreat. The station had survived, though heavily damaged. Aaron and his team had not been defeated, and their courage had inspired everyone present. Lyra finally allowed herself to exhale, realizing the depth of what she had witnessed. Humans were not only capable of surviving against impossible odds, they could shape the outcome of battles through will, determination, and courage. When the chaos settled, Lyra observed Aaron treating the wounded, organizing the station's survivors, and coordinating repairs. His injuries were severe, yet he moved with calm authority, demonstrating resilience and leadership. Lyra's perspective had changed entirely. She had once believed humans were fragile and weak, but she had seen their strength in the most extreme circumstances. Their grit, determination, and courage were unmatched, even by larger, stronger, or more technologically advanced species. Lyra knew that when she reported her observations to the Alliance, she would not describe humans merely as participants in battle. She would record the essence of their endurance, the depth of their courage, and the power of their spirit. Humans had survived, adapted, and inspired, demonstrating a strength that transcended size, speed, or weaponry. Aaron and his team were living proof that humans could stand against impossible odds and emerge not defeated, but victorious in spirit. The legends of human warriors had been incomplete. They spoke of survival and victories, but they did not capture the quiet determination, the ingenuity, or the courage to protect others that made humans extraordinary. Lyra now understood. Humans were not merely fighters. They were symbols of resilience, grit, and unyielding spirit. Aaron had shown her the truth behind the myths, and she would never doubt again. The humans had endured, inspired, and fought with a resolve that would echo across the galaxy, and Lyra was fortunate to witness it firsthand. The final wave of the enemy approached the outpost with overwhelming force. Lyra followed Aaron and the remaining humans, who were determined to hold their ground despite injuries and exhaustion. The corridors were filled with smoke, sparks, and debris from earlier skirmishes. Alarms blared intermittently, warning of breaches and damage. The humans moved as if nothing could stop them. Aaron, though visibly battered, led from the front, inspiring everyone around him to continue. The enemy targeted the most strategic points of the outpost, attempting to break the remaining defenses. Lyra observed Aaron analyzing the situation quickly. He coordinated humans and willing aliens, creating defensive lines, redirecting civilians, and setting traps using what remained of the station's equipment. Every decision was precise, every movement calculated. Lyra realized that human legends had not fully captured this, the ability to remain composed and act effectively under impossible pressure. In a critical junction, the enemy sent a group of heavily armed drones to crush the line. Aaron moved forward alone, using the environment to his advantage. He ducked behind debris, rolled under energy beams, and struck at weak points in the drones. Other humans followed, their courage amplified by his actions. They worked together seamlessly, disabling the drones with minimal losses. Lyra marveled at their resourcefulness and tenacity. The humans did not rely solely on weapons or size. They relied on intellect, courage, and willpower. The battle grew more intense. Energy blasts tore through walls, corridors collapsed, and alarms screamed relentlessly. Lyra saw humans saving civilians in the midst of attacks, guiding them to safety while fending off enemy assaults. Aaron ignored his own pain and fatigue, focusing solely on protecting others. Lyra finally understood the essence of human courage. They fought for survival, yes, but more importantly, they fought for each other. Their will to protect amplified their strength. The enemy shifted tactics, attempting psychological warfare by broadcasting threatening messages and creating overwhelming sensory pressure. Many species faltered, abandoning positions or panicking, not the humans. They remained composed, encouraged each other silently, and pressed forward with unwavering determination. Aaron's presence anchored them. His resolve was contagious, spreading courage to everyone around him. In one desperate moment, Aaron faced a massive enemy assault unit alone. Lyra watched, heart racing as he used debris, energy conduits, and precise timing to exploit weaknesses. He disabled the unit despite being outnumbered and injured. It was not raw strength that carried him through. It was ingenuity, endurance, and an unbreakable will. Every human around him drew courage from his example, moving decisively and strategically against the advancing enemy. Hours passed, and the humans held critical positions. Civilians were safe, and the remaining aliens who had once doubted their capabilities now followed their lead. Aaron and his team had turned a desperate situation into a stand of resilience and hope. Lyra observed that human legends often focused on the outcomes of such battles, but they rarely captured the process, the courage, ingenuity, and persistence that made survival and victory possible. Aaron exemplified all of it. As reinforcements from the Allied fleet finally arrived, the enemy was forced into retreat. The outpost had survived, though battered and damaged. Aaron, still injured and exhausted, coordinated the aftermath, treating the wounded, reinforcing weak points, and organizing the survivors. Lyra felt a profound sense of respect and awe. Humans were not just warriors. They were a force of determination, courage, and spirit. They could endure what seemed impossible and inspire others to rise to the challenge with them. Lyra prepared to document her observations for the Alliance. She knew that words would fail to capture the true depth of what she had witnessed. Humans were not merely skilled fighters. They were beings of endurance, adaptability, and courage. Aaron's actions demonstrated the essence of human grit, an indomitable spirit, a refusal to surrender, and an unwavering dedication to others. This was the truth behind the legends, far richer and more profound than any story she had previously read. In her report, Lyra emphasized the human capacity to survive beyond expectation, to act decisively when others might falter, and to inspire courage in all who followed them. She noted that human legends were incomplete because they often overlooked the quiet determination, the strategic thinking, and the moral courage that made humans extraordinary. Humans fought not just for victory, but to protect life, to endure when all seemed lost, and to lead by example. As she watched Aaron assist the wounded one final time, Lyra realized that the human warrior she had laughed at was not mythical. He was real, and he embodied a force that could shift the course of battles and inspire hope in the darkest circumstances. She understood why humans had earned their place in galactic legend. They were not perfect, but their will to persevere, to act courageously, and to protect others made them formidable beyond measure. The outpost was quiet now, the enemy retreating, and reinforcements stabilizing the station. Lyra took a moment to reflect on what she had witnessed. She had doubted, laughed, and dismissed human legends, but the truth was undeniable. Humans were more than stories. They were reality, and their courage and determination had a power that transcended size, strength, or technology. Aaron and his team had proven that persistence, ingenuity, and spirit could overcome even the most formidable challenges. The legends of human warriors would continue, but now Lyra knew the truth behind them. It was not just the victories or survival that mattered, it was the relentless will, the courage to face impossible odds, and the unwavering commitment to others that defined human heroism. She had witnessed it firsthand, and she would ensure that future generations of the Alliance would understand the reality of human grit. Aaron had fought not just with weapons, but with spirit, and in doing so, he had become a living testament to the strength of humanity.